All right. Ben, if you don't mind, lead us in prayer, young man. Let's get to it.
Heavenly Father, we'd like to say thank you for the many blessings that you stored upon us. Thank you for being God and God all by yourself. Thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for letting us have another fellowship where we receive your truth and hear your truth and let us become doers of your truth, Heavenly Father. Please take away all the naysayers and things that obstacles that are coming our way from us being able to be a part of the kingdom, Heavenly Father. We ask that we have a kingdom mindset, we have a kingdom lifestyle. We speak words of the kingdom, Heavenly Father. Continue to watch over the leaders and guide us, strengthen us, forgive us, and deliver us. Forgive us for all our sins, we pray. Lead in the blessed of God, Son, Yeshua name, amen.
Amen. So, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's been a little bit, dealing with a little sickness and some family stuff, but today we're going to get back into the Traditions of Men series. Today's all about Christmas. You know, it's literally right around the corner. This one's about the Christmas origins, and it's about Santa Claus and the sacrifice. So, first I'm going to ask you, what is Christmas allegedly about?
From a Christian standpoint, from a
Yeah.
regular.
I mean, just what
So regular Christmas is about jolliness, family, kids receiving wonderful gifts. Then it's about the birth of
yeah,
Jesus.
that's the part, right? So, like in the quote unquote Christian church, they tell us it's about the birth of Jesus, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So we're gonna go to the book of Matthew, right? We're gonna go to the first chapter. We're gonna read verses 18 through 25, if you don't mind, young man.
Gotcha. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise, right? Was on this wise. When as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph, before they came together,
That means
she was found
that
with
means
child.
like engaged.
Okay, gotcha. She was found with child of the Holy Ghost. Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privately.
So he was going to secretly divorce and get rid of her, like annul it, right? Okay.
But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Ghost. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins.
Everybody?
His people.
So contextually, that's what the prophecy said, right? Now we know that anybody can cleave to the covenant, so that's neither here nor there. But when you're reading it, you got to read it in context and understand what his mission actually was, right? Same thing in Luke 1. It's going to tell you, save his people from their sins, right? So as we keep going, it says, verse 22, now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God is with us. Then the angel Joseph, being raised from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took unto him his wife, and knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus, or Yahushua, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't know her until he didn't have sex with her until, you know, the Mashiach was born, right? So there's more to it than that, of course. So we're going to go to chapter 2 in Matthew, right? And we're going to read this whole chapter real quick because, again, this is what Christmas is supposed to be about. That's what they tell us in Christianity and Roman Catholic Catholicism, that's what it's about. But in this part, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of a lot of it. Not all of it, because I was just doing research, man. If you really try to tell everybody everything that is tied into this one holiday, it would probably, you would have to have volumes of books, man. It's so much information. I was reading this stuff, I'm like, this don't make no sense. Like, it don't make no sense. So this part is about the three wise men, right? So Matthew chapter 2. Now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. Now we're going to look into this word wise men, saying, "Where is he that is born of the Jew, King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. So I got a couple of questions I'm just going to ask you. First is, who is Herod?
Herod, the king of Jerusalem at the time.
So he's an Israelite?
See, that's what I was thinking there.
So Herod is an Edomite. He was a part of the Herodian dynasty. It's actually where we get the term hero from. They just took the DN part out, right? So whenever superheroes, whatever, this all goes back to worshiping really Edomites or Herodians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's one thing. So wise men. Who are the wise men? You know, we all have heard about the 3 wise men, right?
Yeah.
Does the book actually say 3? Did you read 3 anywhere? Well, we haven't really, actually, no, it didn't in that part. These, right? So that was something that was added later. You'd have to go to one of the Gnostic Gospels. But even then, it doesn't talk about necessarily 3 wise men. It's something that they just dwindled it down to, right?
It was shaking.
Something like that, right? So King Herod being an Edomite, which Edomites are the enemies of the Israelites, even though we're literal cousins or brothers, like we're the closest of kin, but they hate each other, right? It's this eternal struggle that's been going on even since the womb. So he finds out and he goes to the chief priests and the scribes, the same ones that were coming against Mashiach, right? Because they knew that there was a Mashiach coming, that the Messiah was coming. But Herod wants to know where he's at. Why do you think he wants to know?
I know for sure where he
We'll say it.
He want to slew him.
You want to slew him, okay.
He want to kill him.
So the thing about these wise men, okay. So if you go to Strong's G3097, it goes back to the word magos, right? Magos. It's a foreign origin. It means wise man, sorcerer, but actually it's a magus, the name given by the Babylonians, right? So it's a Babylonian term, Chaldeans, the Medes, Persians, and others, to the wise men, teachers, priests, physicians, astrologers, seers, interpreters of dreams, augurs, soothsayers, sorcerers, right? But it's the Oriental wise men or astrologers, because they saw a star, right? Who, having discovered the rising of the remarkable star that the Messiah had been born, came to Jerusalem to worship him. It's also a false prophet and a sorcerer, again.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So it's really not wise men. It's really the actual term, because we're about to read it. It says, of foreign origin, a magician is what they were. Oriental scientists, so they were people of color. By implication, a magician, sorcerer, or wise man. Because there's a lot of misconception. You see all these movies and they give us the image that they want us to focus on, and that's not even it. Because even the ancient Orients were darker hued people. We'll just put it like that. But as we continue, go ahead if you don't mind.
And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus is it written by the prophet, and thou Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, art not the least among the priests of Judah. For out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel.
You see how it always goes back to Israel? I understand that everyone can graft into it or whatever, but the context is Israel. Always Israel. Keep going.
Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out, man, hey man, when you see this thing? I'm trying to get my stuff together real quick, in my records, right?
And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. And when ye have found them, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also.
Yeah, right, dude. You hear about this star that foretells the king of the Jews, and you're the king in Jerusalem, or right then and there, and you want to worship him? Ain't nobody that dumb.
Hey, I'm just tidbit. Like, even though, so he said the devil meant it for my bad, but y'all meant it for my good.
Yep.
It's crazy that he sent them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just go because they wanted to meet him. He sent them.
Mm-hmm.
And he had ill intentions. They probably knew of the ill intentions. I don't know. But they diligently seek. No scripture said diligently seek.
He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess I never noticed that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Keep going.
When they had heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. So the star moved.
Because that was what you would call an appointed time. They were supposed to be there for a reason. There were witnesses to the Mashiach being born, right? Or being alive.
That's crazy. I just thought it was just going to be right north star. It just stood. And they just kind of followed and got up under it. They started moving. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened the treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So
this is what they try to tell us in Christianity is why you give kids gifts on Christmas and on their quote-unquote birthday, right? Going back to the birth of Christ. Well, this is actually after he was born, though, technically, right? Okay.
Not that child. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod. They departed into their own country another way. So the Most High was like, hey, don't go back there because he got some, like you said, some bad intentions for y'all and for the young child. So get up out of there. Yeah, like, ain't no way king gonna want to worship another king that's gonna take his place. Like, this not, especially this not of his. Yeah. Herod, he thought them people were some fools, but they were called wise men or magicians, so they wasn't going. It says, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of Yahuwah appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, because that's one of the ways the Most High talks to us in dreams. And was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of Yahuwah by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So this is around Christ's birth, and you just see nothing but Israelite and people in surrounding coast babies getting killed around a birthday, right? Which they try to say that his birthday was what, December the 25th, which hopefully, if I can finish putting it together tomorrow, we'll finish this. But the wise men, okay. Then it says, then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted because they are not. All those children were killed. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. So this is the same thing that happened to Moses, right? There was another star that foretold his coming, just like in Abraham also. And then next thing you know, children end up getting killed, right? It's a pattern around birthdays. And he arose and took the young child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. But when he had heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. So, like we talked about, Christmas is allegedly about honoring the birth of Christ, right? Honoring the birth of Christ. It's his birthday, right? So, we just talked about the Mashiach's birthday. We talked about Moses. Let's see some other birthdays in the scriptures real quick. So, we're going to go to Genesis 40. Genesis 40, and we're going to read verses 9 through 22. It's on you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was a tough.
And it was as though?
It was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes.
Mm-hmm.
And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup to Pharaoh, into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days.
So Joseph would have been considered a magi by the Babylonians too, because he can interpret dreams. But keep going.
Yet within the 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine hand and restore thee into
Thine
thy
head.
place. Thy head,
Mm-hmm.
and restore thee into thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when they was in his butler.
So you don't see anything about birthday, but you're getting ready to. Go ahead.
But think on me when it shall be with thee, and
And show kindness.
I pray thee unto me, and make mentions of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house.
Because he gave him a good prophecy, right? Okay.
This one that was locked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
For indeed, I was stolen away out of my land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me in put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the upmost basket there was all of the manner of baked meats
Mm-hmm.
for Pharaoh. And the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off of thee, and shall hang thee on a tree. And the birds shall eat the flesh from off thee.
Yeah.
Man, this gotta be hard to hear, man.
Boy, so you just heard that this other guy get this good report, and he said, man, I'm going to lose my head?
And they gonna eat my flesh.
Mm.
And it came to pass
When?
the 3rd day,
On?
which Pharaoh's birthday,
On Pharaoh's birthday, okay.
that was made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and gave the cup, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them.
So that's 3. We went through Mashiach, we talked about Moses, and now we just went through Joseph, right?
Mm-hmm.
Death is always around birthdays for some strange reason, right? So culturally, it doesn't look like the people of the book really paid attention to that. But we're gonna go to Job 1. I know you know about Job.
Mm-hmm. The faithful.
Mm-hmm. Job 1. And I'm going to read verses 1 through 10 and then verses 19 through 22. It says, there was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, everyone his birthday, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So this is another thing talking about birthdays. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them. So that's 10. For Job said, it may be that my sons, maybe it's just 7, have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually, because he was worried. He knew ain't no telling what they was doing on their quote-unquote birthday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them, because he's a son also. And Yahuwah said unto Satan, when comest thou? Then Satan answered Yahuwah and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahuwah said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, and one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered Yahuwah and said, does Job fear God for nothing? Has not you made an hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased. Right? Because, like, Satan, he the original hater. Like, yeah. I mean, of course he loved you. He got it all. Got it all, done it all. Okay, I'm going to keep going to verse 13, actually. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse you to your face. And Yahuwah said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in your power. Only upon himself put not forth your hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahuwah, and there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking, that's on their birthday, wine in their eldest brother's house, more than likely his birthday. Jumping down to verse 19. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the four corners of the house. And it fell, so that was like a tornado, upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell you. Then Job arose and rent his mantle, and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground and worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. Yahuwah gave, and Yahuwah have taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahuwah. And all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Now, that would take a lot of strength. You done lost all your sons.
And you still worshiping the praise?
And then it wasn't just that, like some of this, the version we didn't read, all his cattle, everything was just either stolen, murdered, whatever.
He got sick, he was on his deathbed, his wife came up against him.
Boy.
And
Yeah.
they said he still didn't be God. It was a charge. That's what
Right.
it-
And Job, he knew his children. He was like, man, I know they're doing some wild stuff on their birthday. I already know they got their sisters involved in this nonsense. Let me sacrifice, and hopefully they're not cursing God to his face, right?
Mhm.
So that's another account. So we're going to go to one more. So we're going to the 14th book of Matthew, verses 1 through 11. It's on you.
At that time, Herod
Tetrarch.
the tetrarch, heard of the fame of Jesus, and said unto his servants, this is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. He risen from the dead.
So they thought that Yahusha or Jesus was John the Baptist. Because John, and it's really crazy because there's books about John the Baptist, but they don't really give us a lot about him. But his ministry was large. Technically, Yahusha came under him,
Yeah, I remember. So I remember.
and then did his thing.
Yeah.
But because his ministry was far. But keep going.
For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for
Herodias.
Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife.
Why are you worried about your brother's wife? Keep going.
For John said unto him, it is not lawful for thee to have her.
Yeah, because he was sleeping with his brother's wife. Yeah, he made her his own.
Slow down, baby, Herod.
Mm-hmm.
And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude because they counted him as a prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of
Herodias.
Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she said, being before instructed of her mother, said, give me here John the Baptist's head.
So her mother
and
wanted,
charge her.
because John the Baptist or Yehukin and the immerser, he called old Herod out, and she was like, you know what, we want his head, little girl. Make sure you make your uncle dad give you his head.
Your function.
Literal.
And the charger. What's the charger?
It's right there.
That's a charger.
It's a silver platter. You know the term, give it to you on the silver platter? It's supposed to be your head.
When the king was sorry, nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it to be given her. He commanded it to be given her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. That was wicked. That was wicked.
On a birthday.
That is true. And his head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother.
So usually when you put something on a charger, it's for somebody to eat. So I'm not saying that they ate it. I'm just saying there's no telling what kind of wicked stuff that they was into. Because they was doing some wild stuff. They were eating people in different scriptures in the book also. So are we called to be like the world? Because again, Christmas is supposed to be the birth of Christ. Now, if anybody can show me in the book where Mashiach or Christ tells us to worship him on his birthday, I'll shut up. But you ain't going to find it in there. It ain't in there. Again, are we called to be like the world? Okay. So we're going to go to Jeremiah 10. We're going to read verses 1 through 4. It says, "Hear you the word which Yahuwah speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Yahuwah, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not." So a lot of people in Christianity try to say, well, the Christmas tree, I'm not worshiping it. It's just in there. Because it's just tradition.
But it said don't worship the tree. It just said don't do these things because this is what they do.
Exactly.
So it said take not the way of the heathen
Mm-hmm.
because they cut down the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then only you said they worship it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you keep going, there's a lot of cultures that worship trees, especially when it comes to Christmas. Like the other nationalities of people or religions of different peoples literally venerated and worship trees. And we know that trees also have a phallic symbol connotation. So it may not mean nothing to you, but the reason why they force feed this stuff on TV, especially right now, every movie, commercial, TV show right now is all about Christmas, 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 for a reason, because they want you to worship it. Because wherever you put your attention is where you put your worship at. So we're gonna go to Proverbs 3. We're gonna read verses 31 and then Proverbs 23 verses 17 through 19. It says, "Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways." Because I remember, and my brother was here, he'd say the same thing. Our parents, they kind of did a switch a little bit just because they wanted us to have a quote unquote normal childhood. But we're still not supposed to conform to the world. We ain't. Of course, they always told us about Santa Claus, that he wasn't real, and they were the ones that were doing it. But all this other stuff was just try to make it as normal as possible. That was the new normal, even though the Most High didn't want us to conform to that. He wants us to be separate or holy. And then Proverbs 27 says, "Let not your heart envy sinners, but be you in the fear of Yahuwah all the day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. Hear you, my son, and be wise, and guide your heart in the way," because we're followers or believers in the way. So the Most High, he set up a pattern, a blueprint for us, but the world wants us to be Greek, Roman, or American like everybody else. They don't want us to conform to the word. They want the word to conform to them, right? That's what you always talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we can finally get to the subject matter, right? So we're going to be pulling from a few different books, not all of them today, some of them tomorrow. I'm going to try to finish this tomorrow. This book is called The Pagan Origins, or The Pagan Roots of Christmas. The Pagan Roots of Christmas, right? So old Santa Claus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who is Santa Claus?
All same me. He's the wonderful guy who's coming down the chimney, dipped in red and white, dropping out these wonderful gifts for these babies.
Hmm?
And but he's not for all kids. It would be bad he could be cold.
Cold, right? He's also making a list and checking it twice and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're gonna learn about who Santa Claus really is,
All same me.
if you don't mind.
Father Christmas, the figure we know today as Santa Claus or Father Christmas, riding the dark night sky with his 8 reindeers based on Woden.
Now, who's Woden?
I don't know.
Okay, keep going.
Oh, the Anglo-Saxon god of war and death.
Wait, so Woden or Santa Claus is based off a whole other god
Yeah, the Anglo-Saxon god.
on the 25th of December. Okay. Now, are we supposed to be worshiping other gods?
Not at all.
Okay, keep going.
In the Nordic countries, Woden, or Odin,
Mm-hmm.
known as Odin, rode an 8-legged horse, not him slippery.
So Santa Claus has 8 reindeer, right? But Odin had a what is it, an 8-legged horse that he
Spike.
rode.
He had a big old spike.
Right. But the parallels, it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
so this is what y'all did. Okay, keep going.
Odin / Woden led the wild hunt during Yule at the winter solstice,
Soldier Boy. Uh-huh.
the darkest and longest night of the year.
So wait, Yule is the what?
Longest and darkest night, darkest and longest night of the year.
Okay. That's why they chose that day, but keep going.
In the Nordic countries, children used to fill old boots with hay for Odin's horse. In exchange for the hay, Odin would leave them small gifts as a thank you. Interestingly, in the Netherlands, Odin became known as
That's Odin again.
Sinister
No.
Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas?
Yeah, Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas.
So Odin or Woden became known as Sinterklaas. Now, I asked you who is Santa Claus, right? Okay, keep going.
And rode a horse. The horse is still remembered to this day in popular culture. Where dashing through the snow is
Yeah.
one horse, open sleigh, over the fields go, laughing on the way, jingle bells. Originally known as One Horse Open Sleigh by James Lord
Pierpont.
Pierpont.
So it's really crazy his name, but remember Jingle Bells actually was originally supposed to be for Thanksgiving, but then they switched it, right? We learned that last time on talking about Thanksgiving. But keep going. So Woden, whose name was actually Odin, whose name was changed to Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas, right? Okay, just make sure you're with me. Mm-hmm.
Woden was the chief god of the Anglo-Saxons and was associated with rage, fury, war, and human sacrifice,
Human sacrifice.
but also healing and magic. Royalty known, knowledge and wisdom, poetry, and the
Runic?
runic alphabet. I know that, what is that?
I'm not sure.
He is often depicted carrying a long wooden staff and wearing a long gray coat, with a large gray hat or hood, has one eye missing,
Mm-hmm.
and wearing an ancient Germanic
Mm-hmm.
eagle feather headdress.
So the thing about now look at how Odin is depicted. He's depicted wearing a gray attire, basically like a gray hoodie, right? That's what the Druids were. That's what Gandalf. So he was depicted as how Gandalf actually looks, right?
Mhm.
Gandalf was like a wizard or something like that, right? And so the reason why Odin has one eye, do you know why? He sacrifices so he can get the wisdom to where he can win a war. So he sacrifices his own eye. So it's literally like he's an all-seeing eye, basically, like he can see all. But Christmas, Santa Claus goes back to Odin. This is worshiping another god, and we know that we are not called to do that, right? So I just, in case you didn't know that, you can finish this one up.
And he can see all things.
Mhm.
Playing with all kids.
Literally.
The name Woden comes from the Old English wood, meaning rage, mad, furious. The old Saxon heat.
Santa Claus is Santa Claus. We're going to prove it. So we're going to stop there. I'm going to read this part. So we're going to go to Wikipedia, learn about Santa Claus, right? Or Saint Nicholas, right? Is a legendary figure based on Saint Nicholas, who's a patron saint of children. I don't understand why he would be a patron saint of children. Other Dutch names for the figure is De Saint or the Saint, De Gold Saint or the Good Saint, De Gold Heiligman or the Good Holy Man. Many descendants and cognates of Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas in other languages are also used in the Low Countries, nearby regions, and former Dutch colonies. So, right, so this is over in Europe, right? The feast of Sinterklaas. celebrates the name day of Saint Nicholas on December the 6th. So that's where they celebrated it, right? The feast is celebrated annually with the giving of gifts on Saint Nicholas Eve. So they didn't just take Christmas, they took the Eve part also from this, right? St. Nicholas Eve on December the 5th in Netherlands, and on the morning of December the 6th, St. Nicholas Day, Belgium, Luxembourg, Western Germany, Northern France, French, Flanders, Lorraine, Alsace, and Artois, Romania, Poland, and Hungary. The tradition is also celebrated in some territories of the former Dutch Empire, including Aruba. Sinterklaas, or Klaus, is one of the sources of popular Christmas icon of Santa Claus. It's one of the sources. So Odin is one of the sources of Santa Claus. I thought it was supposed to be about the birth of the Messiah. No, because he wasn't even born on that day. Now, again, one of the sources of Santa Claus, right? So I'm going to keep going. Santa Claus is based on the historical figure of St. Nicholas, is what we read. He lived from 270 to 343 AD. A Greek bishop of Myra in present-day Turkey. So that means he was part of the Roman Catholic Church. He is depicted as an elderly, stately, and serious man with white hair and a long, full beard. He wears a long red cape or chasup over a traditional white bishop's alb, and sometimes red stole. He dons a red mitre, so you know how they've switched it now to where it doesn't look like what he has on right now. But that's literally a mitre. That's what a priest wears. A red mitre and ruby ring, you know how you have to kiss the Pope's ring, and holds a gold-colored crozier, a long ceremonial shepherd's staff with a fancy curled top. So Christmas is really it's all about children, and Christmas is spiritual. People, it's the longest and shortest time of the year, right? That's what we read before, and people don't realize that it's really a ritual or a part of an initiation ritual into things. And if we're not telling our children the truth and separating ourselves from them, we're going to stay underneath all these spells that they have on us, right? It says he traditionally rides a white horse. In the Netherlands, the last horse was called Amerigo. That's really close to America. That's really close to America. But he was pensioned, or he died. In 2019, he was replaced with a new horse called Osni, Oh So Fast. After a passage in a well-known Santa Claus song, in Belgium, the horse is named Slitwer Vandaag de Egg, meaning bad weather today, or Mooi Weer van de Egg, nice weather today. Santa Claus carries a bag, a red book which records whether each child has been good or naughty in the past year. That's what Santa does, right? Making a list, checking it twice. He's going to know if you've been naughty or nice, right? And we've been so programmed because that's why we read the scripture about, you know, envy thou not the oppressor, choose none of their ways. Because when our ancestors were slaves, you know, they were having all this fun, you know, on Christmas and all this other type of stuff. So then once we became free, we wanted to be like them and do as the heathen do, even though we were called to be separate. So, with that being said, who is this? Have you ever seen him before? Okay. So, we think that all this stuff is for us and it's just fun, and like there's a reason why in most of the Christmas or Santa Claus movies, there's always a point to where like you have to believe. You got to believe. Imagination is so powerful, and they got to make you to continue to believe in the spell, in the lie. Right? So if you don't mind, we're going to learn about who this guy is, because you think that this is for you, and it's really not. So it's Zwart Piet. But you can just start calling him that.
Santa Claus.
No. That.
Black Pete. Oh. Santa Claus is associated by Zwart Piet. Assisted by Zwart Piet, Black Pete, a helper dressed in Moorish attire. Oh. And in blackface.
So, they say it's blackface, right? But keep going. Okay, because that's what they do with the people that aren't of dark hue do. But keep going.
Black Pete first appeared in print as the nameless servant of St. Nicholas and St. Nicholas in the
just say that.
St. Nicholas and his servant, published in 1850 by Amsterdam school teacher
Yeah,
John
Skinkman.
Skeet.
So this was so for you that like this servant didn't even have a name originally. It was just this little black person being right there. Didn't even have a name. He would just be being a slave to Santa Claus, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
However, the tradition appears to date back at least as far as early as 19th century.
Which is the 1800s.
Black Pete colorful dress is based on 16th century noble attire.
So why would black people be wearing attire from the 1500s if this came out in the 1800s?
So he's 300 years behind time.
Yeah, it's a little strange, right?
300 years.
Because where we came from slave ships, that's all I'm gonna say. Keep going. Just keep going.
However, the tradition appears to backdate at least the 19th century. I already did that.
Mm-hmm.
With a rough lace collar and a feather cap.
Mm-hmm.
He is typically depicted carrying a bag which contains candy for children. He tosses it around, and tradition supposedly originated in the story of St. Nicholas saving 3 young girls from prostitution by tossing gold coins through their window at night to pay their dowry.
So that's why he's the patron saint of children. He allegedly saved these 3 young prostitutes by throwing money in their window to save them from that.
From prostitution.
Yeah, good old Saint Nick, right? Okay.
Traditionally, he would also carry a birch rod,
Mm-hmm.
a chimney sweeping broom made of willow branches used to spank children who had been naughty.
So they would make the slave go and spank the naughty kids. Okay.
Some of the older Santa Claus songs make mention of naughty children being put in Black Pete's bag.
So
and
now,
taken
so
back
now
to
he's a
Spain.
kidnap. Now he's a Black Pete. He's a kidnapper, and he takes them back to where?
Spain.
That's where we came off of slave ships. We were the ones that came from there. Okay, keep going.
This part of the legend refers to the time that the Moors raided the Europe coast, and as far as Iceland, to abduct the local people into slavery. This quality right, can be found in other
Companions.
companions of St. Nicholas, such as Krampus, Pierre Fontart, yeah, and modern versions of the Santa Claus feast. However, Black Pete no longer carries the rope, and children are no longer told that they will be taken back to Spain in Black Pete's bag if they were not.
It's almost like Peter Pan in Neverland, like he was going to kidnap these kids and take them back to Spain. That's interesting. Again, that's where a lot of us came from. Like that whole Spanish Inquisition, the ones that end up coming were us. They lie about it on history. But keep going.
Over the years, many stories have been added, and Black Pete has developed into a valuable assistant to be absent-minded saint.
So he's-
be the absent-minded saint.
He's only a slave. Watch this.
In modern adaptations for television, Santa Claus has developed a Black Pete for every function, such as head Pete, a navigation Pete, navigate the steamboat from Spain to the Netherlands,
Mm-hmm.
present Pete to wrap all the gifts, acrobatic Pete to climb roofs and chimneys. Traditional Black Pete face is said to be black because he's a Moor from Spain.
We ruled Spain for 1,000 years.
Today, some children are told that his face is blackened
700 years.
with soot because he has to climb through the chimneys to deliver the Santa Claus gifts.
Okay, I'll read the next one. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's just crazy. Like you said, he a little Black Pete from Spain,
Uh-huh.
doing all this work for free,
Uh-huh.
doing all bad
Because
stuff.
Santa can't do it, or Santa Claus can't do it, right? So someone else has got to do it for him. Then it says, the Swarty Piet character, or Black Pete, is part of the annual feast of St. Nicholas that is celebrated on the evening of the 5th of December in the Netherlands, Curacao and Aruba. This is when presents and sweets are traditionally distributed to children, which was where all these traditions come from. The holiday is celebrated on December the 6th in Belgium. Black Pete characters appear only in the weeks before the feast of St. Nicholas. First, when the saint is welcomed with a parade as he arrives in the country, generally by boat, having traveled from Madrid, Spain. So this god comes from Spain, literally. The task of the various Peats are mostly to amuse children and to distribute kruidnoten and pepernoten in the Netherlands, or tangerines and speculoos in Belgium, and other stroogoed or Sinterklaas themed sweets. So the whole idea of sweets around this time frame comes from this. To those who come to meet the saint as he visits schools, stores, and other places. That's why all the schools and stores and other places have Santa Claus show up all the time. It's a program. You got to believe. They want you to believe the hype. They want you to get this Christmas spirit, which is really a spirit of Woden, of Odin. It's not a spirit of Mashiach or Christ. It says history, right? Origins. According to Helen Adeline Guerber and other historians, the origins of Sinterklaas and his helpers have been linked by some to the wild hunt of Odin. We'll probably get into that next time. While riding, maybe today, the white horse, Sleipnir, he flew over through the air as the leader of the wild hunt. He was always accompanied by 2 black ravens, Hugin and Munin. These helpers would listen, just like swarthy Piet, at the chimneys of the homes they visited to tell Odin about the good and bad behavior of the mortals below. So they were peeping toms over here, just ear hustling, paying attention, right? The St. Nicholas tradition contains a number of elements that are not ecclesiastical in origin or biblical, quote unquote. In medieval iconography, St. Nicholas is sometimes presented as taming a chained demon who may or may not be black. So that's what Black Pete is. A tamed demon. Or a possessed person, right? Don't have no control. You just do whatever Santa Claus tells you.
What they said, one of the last things, the last days we talked about, we were talking about how these people, these atheists and these other mindless people.
Nihilist?
Nihilist. I think there was a nihilist.
Yeah.
So he's nihilist.
Yeah. Pretty much. Like you just got to do exactly what he tells you. No thought process. I'm just going to kidnap these children, take them back to Spain, give them sweets that are actually bad for you. And then tell that meritorious manumission back to old slave master or plantation or Santa Claus, right? Back to the book, though. It says, it is important to remember that Woden was a god of war, but he was also married to Frigg, the goddess of peace. Woden is remembered today as a god who gave his name to the English day of the week, Wednesday, from the Old English Woden's Dag, or meaning Woden's Day. So that's why every day of the week we know it's named after a different god. Wednesday or Woden's Day or Odin's Day. So, what is Yuletide? And I'm not talking about Soldier Boy, Yule. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah. So Yuletide, is that an actual tide around this time?
Yeah, maybe, but even that Soldier Boy song with him doing all that, they knew what they were doing, bro. None of that's by coincidence. I don't care what nobody says. Once you start researching stuff and you start saying like, why was he saying that? And then it became like the biggest song throughout the world because it was catchy. Because there's spirits or gods behind it. Okay. So Yuletide. It says the word Yule comes from the Old English Gaola, meaning wheel. So wheeltide. To the Anglo-Saxons, Yule was the most important time of the year and was guarded by 2 moons, Era Gaola and Epherta Gaola. December was known as Aragola, the month before Yule. January was known as Epherta Gola, the month after Yule, right? It says the Yuletide celebrations went hand in hand with the winter solstice. All of this stuff, Christmas, all this goes to winter solstice. The shortest day and the longest night of the year is what we just talked about. When the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest and spirits can cross the threshold to return to their loved ones or to torment the living. Yeah, exactly. But people don't understand. That's why I'm saying Christmas is so spiritual. This whole time of year is spiritual. And we just think things are just about entertainment and having fun, but like, no, they already know it's to a completely different God. It's to Odin with his all-seeing eye. Santa Claus. It says Yule was later replaced by the 12 days of Christmas by Christians who found it impossible to eradicate this ancient pagan tradition. So that's what they do. They just replace it with another tradition that has pagan origins or roots. Though not from a lack of trying, in the 17th century, Oliver Cromwell's Puritan government tried to ban Christmas because it was a pagan holiday. There were riots across the country, and Christmas church services were broken up by, so again, this Yule tide, this Yule season, right? It is the longest and shortest day of the year, and it's the day that has, where the veil is the thinnest. The dead can literally roam the earth. That's why people be consuming a whole lot of spirits, right? A whole lot of alcohol and all other types of nonsense. But that's literally what the ancient people knew and believed it was common. Like everyone knew that. We just don't know it now. It says, in armed soldiers, Christmas decorations were pulled down and burned by the mayor of London. Even Christmas puddings were banned. Christmas was also banned in the British colonies in what became the United States of America. One public notice read. So again, Christmas, it was completely banned. And now people can't live without it. They have to get this spirit of Odin on them, right? The observation of Christmas having been deemed a sacrilege, the exchange of gifts and greetings, dressing in fine clothing, feasting, and similar satanical practices are hereby forbidden, with the offender liable to a fine of 5 shillings. Back then, that was a lot of money. The celebration of Yule had nothing to do with Satanism, allegedly, but it was a time of great superstition. It was a pagan celebration of one cycle coming to an end and the start of another. A turning of the wheel, Yule. It was a time when the sun leaves the realm of the living, allowing darkness and ice to cover the land, killing livestock, plants, and crops. It was a supernatural fire festival where candles, bonfires were lit to brighten up the dome of the sky in defiance of the cold, dark winter, and to frighten away bad spirits and malevolent fairies. So they believed the fire did that. It was a celebration when sacrifices were made to entice the gods to bring back the sun. So again, this is not about Christ or Mashiach. This is about the sun. So it was a celebration when sacrifices were made to entice the gods to bring back the sun, the giver of life, the true savior of mankind. So they don't worship the Son of Man on that day. They're worshiping the sun that's in the sky. The bones of sacrificed animals, those who couldn't survive the winter due to a lack of food, were thrown onto bone fires, and the flesh was eaten in a great feast. In England, there was the Blotmanoth, a great culling of livestock. They killed a bunch of them to prevent them from starving through the winter. Using salt in the cold weather, the meat was easily preserved until the winter solstice, where the people would enjoy a great feast. In Scandinavia, at the beginning of winter, the lady of the household would make a blood sacrifice to the elves called an alpha blot, or an elfin sacrifice. So in the book, who makes the sacrifices? Is it supposed to be the woman? Is she supposed to be the one making the sacrifice? So, right, so it's backwards. So the woman of the household does this. And it says, it was a time when the crops had been harvested and the animals were fat and awaiting the winter slaughter. It is likely that the sacrifices, do you know the origins of making a toast? No, like, how did the term, like, yeah, let's make a toast come, where did it come from? Okay. If you don't mind, start reading from here. My bad.
Were connected to ancestors and fertility, a way to ensure the family was protected during the dark days of winter.
So the sacrifices and all this stuff was all about fertility. That's sex and ancestry worship. That's what Christmas and all this stuff goes back to. Keep going.
The elves are still associated with Christmas to this day, and help Santa prepare gifts for well-behaved children. Also in Scandinavia, there was the midwinter sacrifice
This a blot,
This is like a great sacrifice to honor
this here.
the seer, the spirits of female ancestors.
It has a lot to do with women. So the woman of the household is the one that makes the sacrifice, and this is about honoring the female ancestors.
Which coincides with the Anglo-Saxon Mother's Night.
So and they don't have a Mother's Night today, they have a Mother's Day today, right? Okay, keep going.
As well as feasting. Yule was a time for gathering and fellowship, gift giving and toasting.
What does Yule mean again? Wheel.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking about the whole thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Toasting. The first toast was to Wooden. The second was to
Ing,
Ing, also known as Faye. Oh, this is white, right?
Frey. No, just Frey.
It's not her.
Mhm.
And the third was to the king, wishing him good health and healing.
Yeah, that's a whole trinity, but keep going.
Like the Irish, Samaritan.
Sam Hain. What is Sam Hain?
We named about this last week.
You just talked about it earlier. What's that other holiday?
Oh, Halloween, yeah. So, an extra place was set at the table for dead relatives.
Now, hold on. Can dead relatives eat?
Nah.
Now, they did it because this is the shortest and longest time of the year, and the veil is the thinnest. But we know throughout the scriptures where people would set out food before gods, and that's what people end up doing, worshiping ancestors as gods, which we were not supposed to be doing that. Keep going.
Memorial toasts were then made in memory of the departed king.
So a literal memorial toast, literal toast was made, right? And remember, the first toast goes to Odin or Woden. So the first time you even see toast, it's about Odin, right? Okay, keep going.
Toasting is believed to have been brought to bring by the Anglo-Saxons who literally placed a piece of toasted bread in their drink.
So they would literally have bread toasted in the drinks. That's the origin of toast. The origin of it.
Like everything we do is just
Bro.
messed up.
Bro, like, there's so much I couldn't do. I was just like, man, some of the stuff I knew, some of the stuff I was like, I didn't even think about that. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy. I'm going to read this part. 14. Deuteronomy 14, because I think we're actually going to get this done pretty quick. Deuteronomy 14, we're going to read verses 3 through 8. It says, "Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing. These are the beasts which you shall eat, the ox, the sheep, and the goat, the hart, and the roebuck, and the fallow deer, and the wild goat, and the pigarg, and the wild ox, and the chamois, and every beast that parteth the hoof, and cleaveth the cleft into claws, and cheweth the cud among the beasts, that shall you eat. Nevertheless, you shall not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the cloven hoof, as the camel, and the hare, and the coney. For they chew the cud, but divide not the hoof. Therefore they are unclean unto you. And the swine, because it divideth not the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean unto you. You shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. We was kind of touching on that earlier. So one other thing. So there was all these sacrifices going on around this time frame, Christmas or whatever you want to call it, right? So we're reading about all these unclean foods. So just in case you ever have a taste for it, it says, mammals that have divided hoofs and chew cud are clean. Leviticus 11:3. Pigs have divided hoofs but do not chew the cud. Therefore they are unclean. Horses do not have divided hoofs or chew the cud. Therefore they are also unclean. Okay, so in case you have a taste for some horse meat, I know you were talking about you had some Mr. Ed the other day, so horses are unclean. I'm just saying that, but we're going to go back to pagan roots of Christmas, right? It says in Scandinavia, as the winter solstice approached, a boar, what's a boar?
Oh, it's a pig.
Boar's pig, known as the Yule boar. So around this time of the wheel, it says the Yule boar was chosen and sacrificed to Frey, Ing, the god of peace, light, and agriculture, in the hope he would bring back the sun. So According to Odin or Woden or Frey, in all these cultures, the pig would be a holy sacrifice unto their God. We've been talking about two seeds this whole time. Everything's about two seeds. For them, the pig is holy. The book says the pig is unclean. People rationalize and make up their own whatever about it. But you can't go against the book. It says it's unclean. We just read it. So again, to these people around Yule, these are the descendants of the quote-unquote slave masters. That is a holy thing, right? A swine. And then it says, until the 17th century, it was customary in England and Scandinavia to hunt wild boars. People still go wild hog hunting or shooting. Cut off its head and offer it to the god of agriculture. It was ancient custom that when sacrifice was to be made, all farmers were to come to the heathen temple. It was ancient custom that when sacrifice was to be made, all farmers were to come to the church and bring with them the food they needed while the feast lasted. At this feast, all were to take part in the drinking of ale, so get drunk. All kinds of livestock were killed in connection with it. Horses also. And all the blood from them was called hilat. And hilat boli, the vessel holding the blood, and halatanir, the sacrificial twigs. These were fashioned like sprinklers and were to be smeared all over with blood, the pedestals of the idols, and also the walls of the church within and without. So the blood of the horse and the pig and all this stuff was just smeared everywhere. Everywhere, right? So again, there's two seeds. The book tells us to stay away from that thing because it makes you ceremonially unclean. For other cultures, though, it was an honorable thing. So we're going to go to this website which talks about the Torah. It says, the taboo against pork consumption has been a defining mark of Israelite and Jewish culture for millennia. Going back to the early Iron Age from 1200 to 1000 BC, Israelite archaeological sites lack pig bones. We did not eat that thing. And sites of other local Levantines, other people living in the Levant, i.e. the Canaanites, also yielded very few pig bones. In contrast, the Philistine sites in this period have them in large quantities. Because that's why we never got along with the Philistines. Two seeds, two completely different deities or gods, right? Can you read that?
And the Philistines were not natives of Canaan.
Nope.
What was the word?
Aegean.
Aegean settlers. This fact highlights how variation in pork
Consumption.
reflects an early cultural differences between
Levantines.
Levantines, like the Israelites and the Canaanites. The Aegeans, like the Philistines, Greeks, and Romans, in fact. Recent DNA studies suggest that the Philistines either imported their pigs from Europe or even brought their pigs with them when they migrated. Over time, as the Philistines acculturated to the Levantines environment, pork consumption in these sites decreased.
So even in everything that the Most High does is perfect. He knew that these other nations that were serving these other gods, pork was the thing. That was the sacrifice. You know, that was what was holy to them. That's why he told us, like, no, you're going to be a peculiar or special people unto me. You're not going to do as a heathen do. You know, you're going to stay holy. But no, we don't want that. Slave master gave it to us, and now we can't leave pork. We can't leave it alone. Keep going.
Almost 1,000 years later, when the Greeks conquered
The Levant
from the Persian Empire
in
332 BCE, the two cultures met again, but this time, what's that word?
The Judeans.
The Judeans were a minority culture in an Aegean world. The Jews' status as a distant minority was heightened after the Levant was conquered by Rome in 63 BCE.
Right. That's before Christ, BC. Yeah.
Okay. The same took place in Egypt, another center of Jewish life.
So everywhere where we were, the Greeks or the Romans had taken over, right?
You came
Minorities, right? Mm-hmm.
The Greeks and Romans were curious about the unique people living among them, and a number of Greek and Latin authors discussed the differences between the Jewish practices and their own practices. One of the distinctive markers that especially stood out of the Greeks and Romans is the Jewish avoidance of pork.
Okay, I'm going to read the rest of this page. It says, Roman explanations for Jewish pork. Taboo. It says, the Romans were baffled as to why Jews would not eat pork. And one glaring example provided by Philo of Alexandria from 25 BCE to 50 CE, who went to speak with Emperor Gaius Caligula as part of a delegation of Jews, asking him to intervene against anti-Jewish violence that had broken out in Alexandria. The emperor interrogated the delegation, asking, why do you refuse to eat pork? So our people are trying to get them to like rule with us, like, hey man, we're getting persecuted, won't you help us? Well, why don't you just eat pork? That don't even add up. Don't even make no sense at all, right? Many Roman authors sought to provide explanations for why Jews abstained from this particular food. According to the Roman historian and statesman Tacitus, 56 through 120 CE, the Jews do not eat pork because they once suffered from the same skin disease from which some pigs suffer. They didn't know, they were lying, just making stuff up. Tacitus further suggested the Jews' abstinence from pork is reflective of their general disposition to oppose Roman practice. We weren't eating pork before that. It says, to establish influence over the people for all time, Moses introduced new religious practices, quite opposed to those of all other regions, which we just read something completely different. The Jews regard as profane all that we hold sacred. That's why we don't match. It's two seeds, born in the womb. On the other hand, they permit all that we abhor. They abstain from pork in recollection of a plague, for the scab to which this animal is subject once afflicted them. That was probably in Egypt. They sit apart at meals and they sleep apart. And although as a race they are prone to lust, they abstain from intercourse with foreign women. We used to stay, we still pretty much do stay with our own women. Yet among themselves nothing is unlawful. Now, this says, while Tacitus knows little about the Jews and is unfavorable in his description, he does know that Jews don't intermarry and that they don't eat pork. You can go ahead now.
From confounded to contempt. The Roman confinement with the Jews, stubborn abstinence from pork, became a focus of religious dispute in the writings of some Christian thinkers who
Polemicized
against the Jews' tendencies, adherence to their ancient
prohibitions,
and their perceptions. Jews set ritual laws on a pedestal above all else. According to the Stoic philosopher what's his name?
Epictetus.
For instance, the Jews care more about avoiding pork than other religious precepts.
So that was one of the most important things. So think about our people now. Now they can't live without it.
Oh, yeah.
We went from like I don't care what we eat, but we ain't eating no pig. Like there ain't no swine coming in mine. And now we be like, that swine is so divine.
It's kind, it's fine.
Yeah, right? Like it's like a 180's happy. We've been flipped on our head, but we never used to eat that thing. And a lot of it had to do with Rome. Keep going.
Rome are pigs and boars. The Romans considered pork to be a cultural delicacy, and they consume pork more than any other meat.
Does that not sound like America? Literally, everything is pork.
As a consequence, and as a response to the negative attention which Rome gave to Jews about their abstinence from this delicacy, the Jews associated Romans with indulging in and even embodying pork.
Right.
Indeed, a number of
Midrashic
texts associates Rome with the boar.
So Rome, again, we started calling Romans pigs and pigs Romans. they became synonymous because we're like, no, they act just like it, and that's what they eat. That's
So
what
speak big back.
facts. Literal.
But yeah, for example, the 5th century CE Midrashic collection known as Genesis
Rabbi.
offers a
Homiletical.
homiletical explanation for why Esau married at 40 based on his
Exegesis.
of Psalms 8. The Psalm speaks of the extreme
Devastation.
suffered by Israel, using the metaphor of Israel as a vine, asks God to restore that the people have lost.
Okay, let me read. It says, Psalms 80 verse 9, it says, you brought a vine out of Egypt. You drove out the nations and planted it. Why then have you broken down its walls, so that all who pass the way pluck its fruit? The boar from the forest ravages it, and all that move in the field feed on it. Who is the wild boar who ravages the Jewish vine? The implicit answer is Esau. So not just Rome, Esau was also known with the swine also, whom the rabbis associate with Rome. Since it is Rome that destroyed Judea and which rules over the land in the time of the Darshan, the Midrash goes on to explain the connection between Esau and the boar, right? It says, why historians believe Titus sacrificed a pig to the ensigns in the temple in 70 AD. So in 70 AD, Jerusalem fell. The Jews were surrounded by Rome, and we literally burned and destroyed all of her food, so nobody would run, so everyone was fasting. Then the curses fell upon us during that time because we were supposed to flee to the mountains, but they didn't. And then some of us ate our children. And then once Rome had destroyed everything and took some of us into slavery, this is what happened with Titus, right? It says, what evidence do we have that the Romans sacrificed a pig to the ensigns in the Jewish temple? Now, we know we're not supposed to sacrifice a pig to the Most High. Okay. It says, temple in 70 AD. I can't even say that. Swerve Torilia, the ritual sacrifice of a pig, sheep, and an ox was customarily performed for land purification ceremonies so as to cleanse the past and future sins committed on the land. So for them, the pig would be the focal point of the sacrifice to purge a land. And the Most High says that it's abominable. Like everything they do is backwards. It says, if a temple was destroyed, as was the case in 70 AD, the site of the temple must be purified by the Swerve-Torilia, the ritual sacrifice of an ox, a sheep, and a pig. Illustrating this custom, the Swerve-Torilia was performed 1 year earlier in AD 69 by Vespasian, of all people, which is his father, for the purification of the temple to Jupiter, or Zeus. Juno and Minerva in Rome, when the church burned due to the civil war during the year of the 4 Caesars, right? Histories, 453. It says, if Vespasian sacrificed a pig as part of the Swerve-Torilia at the destruction of a church in Rome, Vespasian's son Titus would have also been expected to do the same thing during the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD. This is the abomination of desolation that the scriptures talk about. As the Swerve-Torilia was the customary sacrifice to purify a church that had been destroyed. Recall that the Romans instituted these sacrifices while the Jewish temple was aflame. So they instituted these sacrifices then, when it was burning down. A fact strongly hinted that a pig was sacrificed as part of the Swerve-Torilia at that time. That's what Mashiach told you. Pay attention to the abomination of desolation. Considering the historical circumstances surrounding the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, there are few reasons why Titus and his army may have been especially eager to make this unholy sacrifice. According to Professor Watts, professor of New Testament at Regent College, no Roman tomb was legally protected without a pig being sacrificed. They worshipped a pig. That's why I be trying to tell people, like, you got to be careful what you're putting in and realize that your Oppressors worship this thing. How you have a breakfast with sausage and bacon and ham? It's pig worship. Don't even realize it. Then in Rome, your tomb wasn't even protected unless you had a pig there. Like the stuff, you start looking at all this stuff like, man, this don't make no sense. It says again, the temple was littered with, no Roman tomb was legally protected without a pig being sacrificed. Every time there was a tomb, there was a pig sacrifice to cleanse the land. Obviously, the temple in Jerusalem was littered with the bodies of dead Roman soldiers in AD 70. Also citing KMT Atkinson, Brain Insurgery points out that the Romans would sacrifice a pig before the standard ensigns at the taking of a military oath. So even when somebody's joining the military, a pig is slaughtered. Everything they do had to do with the pig. Everything is pig worship. Like that's why I said Christmas and all this time frame, like even Thanksgiving, there's always a ham and all this pigs in a blanket, all this stuff. Don't even realize why they want you doing that. It's to a whole different God, a whole different deity. It says the standards inside taking military oaths, sacramentium militare, shown in coins of the 1st century BCE. The sacramentium militare was the oath taken by soldiers to pledge their loyalty to the emperor. Recall that during these sacrifices to the ensigns, Titus was declared imperator by his army. So again, the sacrifice that's holy to them is unholy to the Most High. Now, swine etymology, if you don't mind. Swine etymology.
Swine, Old English swine, domestic pig, hog, sow, or sow, wild boar. Commonly used.
Just go from Proto-Germanic.
From Proto-Germanic, swingia.
But just jump down to the next paragraph because it's just different variations of the same thing.
The native word, it has been largely ousted by pig.
But swine is the older word, okay.
Applied to persons from late, meaning or degraded.
From the late 14th century, yeah, mean or degraded.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, from the late 14th century, mean or degraded. It's graded, yeah. Sensually of course, and coarse. Sensual and coarse. The phrase pears before swine is from Matthew, what's that, 7:6?
Yeah, 7.
An early English formation of it
Just jump down to the last paragraph.
The Latin word of the gospel verse was confused in French with
Marguerite.
Marguerite, daisy, the pearl of the field, and itch, in Dutch, I said itch. In Dutch, the expression became roses before swine. Swine drunk is from 1590s.
Pay attention to this part.
Swine flu is associated from 1921. Earlier terms in the infection pig disease.
What? So earlier terms for infectious pig diseases. So there were other infectious pig diseases. Okay.
Included swine plague.
In 1891, so there was a swine flu in 1921. You go back a little further, 1891, there's a swine plague. Now check this out.
Swine pox was originally chicken pox.
In the 1520s.
1520s.
But what happened a little bit after that?
It is, I'm talking about 1520?
No, right, no.
Oh, read this. Oh. It is attested from 1764 as a disease of swine.
So chicken pox is actually from swine,
Yeah.
from the consumption of swine. So why they call it chicken pox?
So what's up?
All of this stuff comes from swine, but they want us to keep eating it. Like you should start looking this stuff up and it's like, that don't make no sense. Chicken pox was really everything. They worship the pig because it goes to Odin. It goes to Santa Claus. Santa Claus.
It was some, it was talking about cutting the head off and sacrifice for the land, agriculture goddess, whatever.
Free.
And I was just thinking about the hog head cheese, just literally, like they just boiled a whole head, put it into like a loaf of meat.
Because again, culturally, our people didn't do that. Like we read, it talked about how you don't find any like pig remains or bones like where we used to be at in the Levant area. Anybody in there, very few remains of pigs. Once you go out of that and you get foreigners coming in, that's when you start seeing this pig worship. Because that's what America does. They worship pig. Because you go to like other places, like when we went on a camping trip trying to find clean marshmallows, you start looking at all these websites, all places outside of America, the marshmallows don't have pork in it. But in America, it's hard to find even marshmallows without pork, a pig or swine in it. Why is that? They know who here. What was you gonna say?
Now, because he was like, you didn't find the bones or whatnot. Like, that's how they, like, one of the things they, was saying that was distant because the deviation was the bones.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bones that was around their area, you know. And it's like they purposely took the bones and started, like, now that's what they make jello out of. That's what the gelatin comes from. So it's like, now, okay, so you're going to get us by our bones, by the pig bone, we got something there. We're going to use these too. Not only are they eating the meat, but they're using the bones.
Like when I tell you, it's
Evil.
literally pig worship, and it says pigs were unclean because they ate filth. The Jews were not alone in this prejudice, because again, this is more of an African thing. It says, in the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt, priests and rulers avoided pork at all costs. Just across the Mediterranean, however, the Romans loved swine with a passion matched by few people before or since. And these are their descendants, the ones that rule the world. It says, Romans sacrificed pigs to their gods and created an elaborate pork-based cuisine, including some dishes such as roast udder of lactating sow that could make even a Gentile shudder. So again, this is swine worship, pig worship, Odin worship. It says, prior to the transatlantic slave trade, pigs were present in sub-Saharan West Africa, where a lot of us were, but they were not a major part of the indigenous diet. Even if pigs were plentiful, Islam had spread in the region since the 800s CE, which made pork a taboo for the burgeoning number of Muslims. Centuries later, slavers didn't care what spiritual practices their human captives observed. Enslaved African Muslims and Israelites were force-fed salted pork on the weeks-long journey by ship from West Africa to the Americas. The only other option was to starve. It says, once in the British North American colonies, slaveholders doled out weekly rations of a couple pounds of dried, pickled, salted, or smoked pork, along with a few pounds of cornmeal and a jug of molasses to the enslaved. That was the only thing they would give to us. That's it. Slaveholders relied heavily on pork to feed the enslaved because pigs were so easy and inexpensive to raise. One of the high points on the plantation calendar was the annual hog killing, where numerous pigs were slaughtered, processed, and preserved to provide nourishment throughout the year. If enslaved people wanted another source of protein, they had to fish, hunt, or raise livestock during their leisure time, of which they had little. Many still did so to supplement their diet, but pork was the meat the enslaved typically ate. This whole thing is about a sacrifice or a pig worship, literally pork worship. So back to the pagan roots of Christmas. It says, and likewise the men present were to be sprinkled with the blood, right, of the pig and of the horse. But the meat of the animals was to be boiled and served as food at the banquet. Fires were to be lit in the middle of the church floor, and kettles hung over them. The sacrificial beaker was to be borne around the fire, and he who made the feast and was chieftain was to bless the beaker as well as all the sacrificial meat. It says the wild boar was the traditional meal at Yule until it was replaced by the peacock, roast beef, venison, goose, and finally the turkey in the 19th century. In the 21st century, England, the boar still has its place on the Christmas dinner table in the form of pigs in a blanket, pork sausages wrapped in bacon. Interestingly, the traditional Christmas pudding was, until quite recently, a bowl of porridge. It was also customary in England to leave out a bowl of porridge to appease the household fairies. This custom survives today, only we now leave out milk and cookies for Santa. All of this stuff has pagan origins. Like, we're almost done. We got like I think 2 or 3 slides. So the sacrifice to their God is unholy to the sacrifice to the Most High. Christmas, all this stuff is spiritual. The shortest and longest day, it's the day of the thinnest veil between the natural and the supernatural world. That's why you got to be careful. Who you giving your praise to, who you giving your focus and attention to. Whoever you're worshiping. It says, so now I got a question. Why do we put stockings over the fireplace?
For the, that's for the 8 days of horse. So
No, I'm just saying like why do people do the stockings now?
but that was, I don't know.
Because Santa's supposed to leave you a gift in there, right? That's where
Yeah.
Santa puts the gift over the fireplace.
Stocking stuff.
Right.
It's the entrance to the home.
Right. Through the chimney, right? So this is all about Hortha. This is the last slide, actually. Hortha. It is said that the pagans of Germany would build an altar inside the Hertha fireplace dedicated to the goddess Hertha. Hertha would follow the smoke and come down the chimney to reward the good with gifts or punish the bad. So this is a woman, and that's something now that Santa Claus does. She is the reason why we hang stockings over the fireplace at Christmas to collect gifts during the winter solstice celebrations. The term hearth comes from Hertha. So it was a literal altar that would be inside a fireplace. An altar is what you worship, what you used to worship or to burn a sacrifice or kill a sacrifice. So, like I said, there's more, but I'm stopping there. But please, people, wake up, vet the information. Don't take it, my word for it. Please like, subscribe, follow. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a part 2 if I can tomorrow. That's all I got. Did that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Pray us out.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the truth that you have this imparted on us, Heavenly Father. Please let us take heed before it's too late. Heavenly Father, we ask and pray that we show ourselves approved unto you, Heavenly Father, and teach these children so when they get older, they will not depart, Heavenly Father. Keep allowing us to hear your word and become doers of your word. And these are the blessings we still ask and pray for all our sins to be forgiven. We repent on the daily, Heavenly Father. These are the blessings of God, Son, and I, we pray. Amen.
Shabbat shalom.